Hey everybody, it's me, the Mad Montreal Man. Everyone knows me as me, or their names. I've got Nika on camera, formerly known as the cute Montreal girl, but she's not a girl anymore. She's all grown up now. It's been a long time, just having a taste of this True North Strong and Free. No product placement here. Won't mention what drink it is, but you can figure out what it is. So hey, welcome back. We're finally doing the cool comic book review show again, except would you agree, Nico, that we're not really doing a review anymore? It's just a cool comic book show now?
Yeah, it's not really a review. We haven't done reviews in a while. It's kind of...
We're more like picking a topic today. And today, of course, I decided, well, it's Canada weekend, right? Canada Day, yay!
Happy
I figured, you know what? We did a show many years ago. My God, I can say that now. Many years ago, we did a show about the comic books from Ireland. But I've never really gone into the Canadian comic books. And I'm not talking about the ones you find in the history books, like the old things here, or like in this wonderful NFB, well, this Canadian thing about comic books.
Comic book art. Adrian Dingle was the supervising art director for Bell Features. He worked around the clock, meeting the deadlines for some 200 books.
That's right, 200 books back in the war years. Yep, Bell Syndication put out about 200 comic books. Because during World War II, you couldn't get American comic books from the States. You had to get Canadian stuff. And some of these were fantastic. They were called the Canadian Whites, not because they were racist. No, they were called the Canadian Whites because they were printed on high-quality white paper. Go figure. They were actually really good quality stuff and so forth. And you had characters like Novana of the North, Brock Windsor, one of my favorites. Well, just give me a second here. I'll show you one of my favorites. Of course, would happen to be Commander Steel. I know a lot of people are thinking, hey, it looks like Superman. Well, when you think about it this way, if you watch your heritage movement things, Joe Shuster was Canadian. So that's right, our biggest well-known Canadian superhero ever, Superman himself. But we're not talking about them, and I really don't want to get into much to the old comic books, because they are really great. They're fantastic artwork. But the thing is, back in the 40s, we had an industry in Canada that was promoting Canadian characters, Canadian content. And it was great stuff. I've read some of them. Unfortunately, they're extremely hard to have. If you have any, please let me know. I'd like to get my hands on them. But these comic books actually had a Canadian flair to them. I mean, okay, Johnny Canuck was a bit of a predictable comic book, but the Brock Windsor, Nelvana of the North, I mean, you think, Canada, Nelvana of the North, here's a comic book with a woman superhero, and who was native, too. It was fantastic. Commander Steel, these wonderful comic books that used sci-fi and actual real storytelling with good art and some really bad art too. But then we lost it. I mean, unfortunately, once the war was over, we couldn't compete with the American companies because, well, let's be honest, they had more publishing power. So we lost the 40s. The 40s ended, and unfortunately, just like I'm closing this page here, we lost these characters. Now, we still had the artist, mind you. Like something like, okay, first of all, I'm jealous. Look at that pile of comics.
Bell Features, which employed more than 60 artists over a 5-year period.
Originally, they all worked for us upstairs in the floor.
See what I mean? So, but that was the 40s. In the 50s, we lost. In the 60s, we didn't have much. In the 70s, yes, unscripted, I'm making the camera girl back up. In the 70s, however, what happened was, we ended up by having an underground movement, so like that, hey, we're not going to do superhero comic books. People started doing stuff in the 70s, which is another topic for a whole other day. But it did lead us to the 80s. Now, if most people remember, the comic book industry back in the 80s went crazy. You had Marvel, DC, First Comics. You had Eclipse Comics. You had a whole range of comic books that came out, which also meant we had a resurgence of Canadian comic books. I was lucky enough to be from Montreal, and in Montreal at the time we had a great comic book company called Comico. Comico was a great comic book company. It was fantastic. And there were some connections. I mean, even though I wasn't a Canadian artist, however, Mage, done by Matt Wagner, yes, I know it looks like me, don't remind me, was done in Montreal. And it had that kind of feel. It was also one of the first superheroes who didn't really have a superhero costume. And the reason why I want to talk about Mage, or Matt Wagner's Grendel as well, is because here's comic books that back in the 80s were groundbreaking. And if you want to look for something old to read, go look this up. Matt Wagner still does comic books, so does Bernie Moreau, his favorite colorist. And that's what I want to talk about next. Because thankfully in the 80s we had this wonderful surgence of comic book characters. Yes, we had Captain Canuck, the flag-wearing superhero, which we had, and so forth. But one of the comics I liked the most was, of course, the Jam. This, to me, was Canadian comics. Here you got a guy, okay, regular kind of guy, got girl problems, has a dog, and it was fun. He liked pizza. This, to me, was so groundbreaking. I was lucky enough to know Bernie in Montreal. But this comic book was so groundbreaking to me. It was so much fun. This to me was the epitome of Canadian Montreal culture, right here. So if you're out there and you see Bernie's comic books, pick them up. They're great. And I know Bernie sometimes watches this because we're still friends on Facebook. Hey Bernie, just happy birthday late, by the way. This is one comic book I say we should bring back. It's the time now. I know Bernie's working on a collection of all the Jams, which, Bernie, I want a copy, desperately. This is one of the few characters I've been wanting to cosplay for a long time. Yes, I do cosplay. I started doing the outfit, but unfortunately, as you guys know, car accidents happen. But this character is so fantastic. The books were so great. They were so much fun. Bernie, if you're listening, or if anyone out there is talking to Bernie, bring back the Jam. The time is now. Bring back the Jam. I know you have other work to do, and you've progressed as an artist further than this. But trust me, there are people like me out there who would love the Jam. We still talk about it. And if you don't know the Jam, this to me is the comic books from the 80s. This was how good it was. And of course, Comica was a great comic company. They gave the Jam a shot. Slave Labor. All these companies have had the Jam at some point. But, the 80s was a good year. It was a good year. It was a good decade for comics. You had Cerebus the Aardvark, Canadian. You had a whole bunch of all these other wonderful comic books coming out that were Canadian. But the same thing happened as in the 40s. The economy of the world, the comic book industry kind of went, we can't support all these comic book companies, and one by one they started falling away. We lost First Comics, we lost Eclipse, Caliber, all these companies kind of folded in, so we went back just to like the main two with Image on the side and so forth. But that was last century. That was in the previous millennium. I know, I'm getting old. But nowadays, yes, I'm coming towards you, Nikata. Remember, this is unscripted. This is just me talked up in my head.
We have like 5 minutes left.
Yes, I know. But nowadays, we have a new company from Toronto, Charterhouse Comic Books. And they're doing something that's kind of like the Jam, but for Toronto, The Pitiful Human Lizard. Now, I know when you first think about it, it's one of those, but you know what? It's one of those fun comic books you get into. And it's great.
Cut your head off for a second. I'm sorry.
You cut my head off?
Yeah, cut your head off.
It's reattached. But the great thing about this comic book company is that they're actually coming back. And they're not just doing the fun kind of, hey, this is a Montreal superhero, kind of like the Jam was from Montreal. They're also brought back, for the people who remember them, look, it's the original Captain Canucks. The old stories, which are fun to read. They've also brought back the Captain Canuck as a new story. And they even have a new Captain Canuck, which is even cool, because check this out. So Charterhouse is one of those companies I tell you, look into. There's nothing wrong with reading a comic book that's done in Canada for Canada. I mean, come on, be a true patriot. Okay? These are fun stories. And if you're just thinking, okay, all they're doing is superhero stuff, well, guess what? The Fourth Planet from Charterhouse is not a superhero comic book, nor is Spirit Leaves. Okay? It's really nice to see comic books again because even though you might not realize, a lot of the comic books you pick up have a Canadian touch. Ed Brisson, guess what? Lives in Vancouver, writes comic books. And if you want something different, there's nothing wrong with being proud of reading a comic book that you can stand up and be proud of. Okay? Mini-series are great, but even then, there's always local artists who do great comic books, such as this. So, you know what? There's nothing wrong with being proud Canadian. I'm letting Nico show you the comic books, because, you need to have all those panning, really cool shots of all these cool comic books. But my whole point is, Canada does have a comic book history. We've had a great history with comic books. From the Golden Age, Wow Comics, the wonderful characters, to the resurgence of the more unique Canadian comic books. Be proud of your Canadian comic books. Buy Canadian comic books. Encourage them. For people like Bernie out there, thank you for doing stuff. People like Ed Brisson, Brandon, keep up the good work. Charterhouse, thank you so much for making me actually want to do a comic book show again. So that's it for me. We talked about comic books. We summed it up a little bit. It goes on camera. Yay.
Yay.
So like I said, join us next time. If you have any ideas for topics for the cool comic book show, like something you want me to talk about, something different, you want me to focus on a certain artist, let me know. We might be doing our next show on old Western comics. Just saying. Okay? For now, it's been a long day. I'm at work if you can't figure it out. On a double shift.
Yay.
Lots of fun. We were supposed to go see a movie tonight, but we're not, so we're filming this instead. That's my lunch break. But you don't care about that. We care about comic books. That's what the whole thing's about. So hey, look into the old Golden Age comic books from Canada. They're really cool. Pick up the Jam if you find it. Some places will be in dollar bins, something you have to look for. But when Bernie puts out his collected piece, get it. It's one thing I will say, get the Jam. You will not regret it. It's a great comic book. And check out Charterhouse. Check out the other Canadian comic book companies. So for Nigel, the noteworthy one, and myself, we'll see you guys the next time. Later.